What if I told you that starting in 2026, thousands of green card holders could be put at risk of losing their status without committing a single crime, simply because they didn't clear a new 3-year government review? If you believe your green card is permanent, you may already be on a countdown you don't even realize is running. Welcome back to Move and Earn USA, where we cut through the noise and bring you the immigration information that matters most to your life and your family's future. I'm here today to walk you through something that every single green card holder in America needs to understand right now. What I'm about to share is detailed, it's significant, and it needs your full attention because it could impact millions of lawful permanent residents across the United States. If you've been a green card holder for 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, and you assumed your permanent resident status was exactly that, permanent, stay with me through this entire video because the landscape is shifting in ways most people have not fully grasped yet. We're talking about a major change in what it could mean to hold a green card in America. This isn't a small policy tweak or a minor adjustment to existing rules. This is a fundamental rethinking of the relationship between the United States government and its lawful permanent residents. The law being discussed in connection with these changes is referred to as the Secure Paths and Integration Act of 2025, and it's being described as one of the most sweeping overhauls affecting green card holders in a generation. Supporters say the goal is to modernize the immigration system and promote what they call deeper civic and economic integration of permanent residents into American society. But what does that actually mean for you, for your daily life, for your family, and for your long-term plans in this country? That's what we're going to break down together today, step by step, requirement by requirement, so that by the end of this video, you understand what's being proposed, what could change, and how to prepare. Before we go deep into the details, here is the single most important concept you need to understand. For decades, a green card has worked as what many immigration experts call a passive status, meaning, once you became a lawful, permanent resident, as long as you didn't commit serious crimes, as long as you didn't abandon residency by staying outside the United States for extended periods, and as long as you renewed your physical green card on time, you were essentially set. You could live your life, work your job, raise your family, and build your American dream without constantly worrying that you had to prove yourself again and again. That era may be coming to an end. Under this new framework, the green card shifts from passive status to something much closer to an active status. In other words, keeping lawful permanent residence would no longer be just about avoiding major problems. It could require ongoing, proactive engagement with new requirements, new documentation, and regular reviews. Your green card would no longer feel like a destination you reached after years of waiting and processing. It becomes more like a journey with mandatory checkpoints. Checkpoints you may need to pass every few years to keep your status. Now, I know some of you are already feeling anxious just hearing this. Let me address that directly. Yes, it's a serious shift. Yes, it can require planning and effort. But panic is not productive and panic is not necessary. What is necessary is understanding, preparation, and action. And that's exactly why we're here today. So let's talk about the stated purpose behind this legislation, because it explains the structure of the requirements. Supporters in Congress describe two main objectives. The first is modernization and efficiency, digitizing immigration records, and creating what they call a more streamlined, data-driven approach to oversight, with better online portals and faster processing systems. The second objective is integration, and this is the one that could affect your day-to-day life as a green card holder. The argument is that long-term permanent residents should be more connected to their local communities, more engaged in American civic life, and on a clearer path toward potential citizenship for those who want it. In theory, that may sound reasonable. In real life, it creates a new administrative burden for every single green card holder in the country. It introduces new responsibilities, new paperwork, and new checkpoints that simply didn't exist before. At the center of this law is something called the Continuous Status Review, often shortened to CSR. This is the tool through which the new standards would be enforced, and you must understand how it works. The Continuous Status Review is a mandatory check-in process that lawful permanent residents would have to complete on a regular schedule. And when I say regular, I mean every 3 years. Every 3 years, you would go through a review process. This is separate from the existing 10-year green card renewal. Your physical green card would still have to be renewed every 10 years the way it always has been. CSR is an additional requirement layered on top of the current system. Think of CSR as a periodic re-verification of your eligibility to keep permanent resident status. It's not just confirming that your card hasn't expired. It's checking whether you, as a person, are still meeting an expanded set of criteria the government would now treat as the standard for an active, integrated permanent resident. CSR is expected to be primarily online, connected to those modernization goals. You'd use government portals and digital systems, but don't let online trick you into thinking it's just a few clicks. This would require submitting substantial documentation, gathering evidence, and obtaining verification from third parties. So, what are the standards? What documentation are we talking about? CSR is built around two core areas. First, a civic integration requirement. Second, stronger and more frequent verification of financial self-sufficiency and continuous residency in the United States. Let's break down each part clearly. The civic integration requirement is one of the newest and most debated pieces of the entire plan. It's not something green card holders have typically been required to prove on an ongoing schedule. Under this system, during each 3-year period, you would have to show that you've been actively participating in American civic life in specific, measurable ways. And the law gives two options, meaning you can choose the path that fits your situation. Option 1 is community service. You would complete and provide verification for 40 hours of community service during each 3-year period. The service would need to be done through a registered nonprofit organization, a public school, or another government-recognized community entity. When you break it down, 40 hours over 3 years averages a little over 13 hours per year, or about an hour a month. The government's logic is that this is manageable and encourages deeper ties with the community. Option 2 is completing a government-certified civics and governance course. This would not be the simple civics test people take during naturalization. This is described as a more comprehensive program covering the U.S. Constitution, the structure of government at federal, state, and local levels, and the rights and responsibilities of citizens and permanent residents. These courses would be offered online and through certain institutions, and once you complete the program, you receive a certificate that you submit as part of your CSR. Supporters say the purpose is to move beyond the old concept that permanent residency is only about physical presence. They want to build what they call belonging and shared responsibility, with permanent residents more prepared for citizenship if they choose to pursue it, and more engaged in their communities in the meantime. But we have to be honest about what this could look like on the ground. Think about a single parent working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on and provide for their kids. For that person, finding 40 hours to volunteer, even across 3 years, could be extremely difficult. Think about elderly permanent residents with mobility limits or health issues. Think about people with disabilities who face barriers to volunteer work or classroom learning. The law mentions waivers for hardship, disability, and special circumstances, but the real question is how those waivers work, what proof is required, and how difficult the process becomes once regulations are finalized. There are major unanswered implementation questions too. Which nonprofits qualify? How will hours be verified? What systems stop fraud without punishing honest people? Will the civics course be offered in multiple languages? Will the course cost money or be free? These details will determine whether this requirement works as intended or becomes a trap for well-meaning families. Now let's move to the second major piece of CSR: financial self-sufficiency and continuous residency. These topics are not new in immigration law. The idea of financial self-sufficiency and avoiding public charge issues has existed for a long time. What changes here is how often you may need to prove it and how much scrutiny could be applied. Right now, financial self-sufficiency is mainly examined when you apply for your green card, and sometimes again during citizenship or certain re-entry situations. But once you have your green card and you're living here, there isn't a scheduled review every few years where you must prove you're still financially stable. Under CSR, every 3 years you could be required to submit evidence of continued financial stability. While final regulations would control the exact list, the language suggests you should expect to provide tax returns for the prior 3 years, because those returns show income, work history, and overall financial picture. You may also be required to declare that you have not received certain federal means-tested public benefits during the review period. Which benefits count, and how the rule is applied, could become one of the most controversial parts of implementation. This is where things get complicated, and where you must pay close attention. There are many government programs in the United States. Some are universal, like public education or emergency services. Some are insurance-based, like Social Security retirement or Medicare. And some are means-tested programs meant to help low-income families. If means-tested benefits are treated as a negative factor in CSR, the real-life questions become huge. Will short-term emergency help be treated differently from long-term dependents? If someone used food assistance briefly during unemployment, is that treated the same as years of housing subsidies? Will benefits received by children be counted against the parent's status? These are life or death issues for families facing temporary hardship, and the answers will matter. The continuous residency piece is the other half. The basic rule remains: a green card can be considered abandoned if you spend too much time outside the United States or show intent to live elsewhere. But CSR creates a more frequent, formal checkpoint where your residency pattern and ties can be reviewed. During each 3-year review, you may have to submit evidence that you maintain real ties to the United States. That could include proof of U.S. employment or self-employment, property ownership or a long-term lease, U.S. bank accounts, and information showing your immediate family lives with you in the United States. The goal is to identify people who may live abroad most of the year while keeping a U.S. green card as a backup plan. It's designed to make it harder to be what some immigration lawyers call a commuter permanent resident. And if the system includes a probationary status for people who fall short, that introduces a new layer of legal jeopardy. In the past, many green card holders felt secure as long as they stayed out of trouble. Under this system, administrative mistakes, missing documentation, or life circumstances could push someone into a risky category where they're one step away from losing everything they built. So what should you do right now? Let me give you practical steps that every green card holder can start today. First, do not panic. This is new, and the regulations that determine exactly how it will work are written by agencies during implementation. There will be rollout timing, guidance, and likely updates. Panic leads to bad decisions, wasted money, scams, and unnecessary life changes made from fear. Stay calm, stay informed, and take measured steps. Second, start documenting everything now. Do not wait until your review date is near. Build your documentation file today. If you volunteer at your child's school, your place of worship, a food bank, or a community organization, get letters documenting your hours and keep records while everything is fresh. At the same time, keep strong records related to your employment. Save pay stubs, W-2s, contracts, and proof of income earned in the United States. Keep all tax returns in an organized file you can access quickly. Create a residency evidence file. Keep copies of your lease or mortgage documents, utility bills showing your U.S. address, bank statements from U.S. institutions, car registration and insurance, and anything else that shows your life is based here. If you travel internationally, keep clear records of dates, reasons, and proof you always return to the U.S. When your review comes, you want a clean, organized package ready to submit, not a last-minute scramble to recreate 3 years of your life. Third, understand the timeline and follow reliable sources. The Secure Paths and Integration Act of 2025 is described as taking effect on January 1st, 2026, with the first wave of continuous status reviews beginning later that year, likely in phases based on when someone first became a permanent resident. Your job is to track official updates, check USCIS announcements, sign up for email alerts if they're available, and follow reliable immigration news sources and YouTube channels like ours that focus on accuracy and verification. What you should not do is rely on rumors, forwarded WhatsApp messages, random posts with no sources, or social media speculation. In periods of change, misinformation spreads fast, and acting on false information can be worse than not acting at all. Fourth, if your case is complicated, talk to a qualified immigration attorney. Everything in this video is for education. I am not an attorney, and this is not legal advice for your specific situation. If you have past immigration issues, if you've received certain benefits, and you're worried how that could affect you, if you have medical issues that could impact civic integration requirements, or if you travel frequently for work and you're concerned about residency, you need personalized legal advice. A good attorney can help you plan, document correctly, request waivers if needed, and represent you if your status is challenged. Yes, attorneys cost money. But protecting your ability to remain in the United States is worth serious consideration, especially if your situation isn't simple. This new framework transforms what it could mean to be a lawful permanent resident. It shifts the green card from a relatively stable status, maintained by avoiding major problems, into an active status requiring ongoing proof, documentation, and periodic reviews. That is a major shift, and it will require adjustment for millions of people who have built their lives in America. But here's what I want you to remember. You are a valued part of this country. You came legally, you followed the process, you built a life here, and you contribute. Whatever the motivations behind these changes, challenges can be met with preparation. Knowledge is your tool. Documentation is your proof. Action taken today will help you later. Treat this with seriousness, but not fear. Fear paralyzes people. Fear creates bad decisions. What you need is clear-eyed understanding, systematic preparation, and the confidence that comes from being ready. By keeping good records, staying informed, and getting help when needed, you can navigate the system successfully and show again and again that you are exactly what you've always been, a contributing, integrated, committed resident of the United States of America. Thank you for trusting Move and Earn USA to bring you this critical information on the Secure Paths and Integration Act of 2025. I know this was a lot, and I appreciate you staying with me through this detailed breakdown. If you found this valuable, take a moment to like this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm push this information to more people who need it. Share it with family members, friends, co-workers, and anyone you know with a green card who needs to understand what could be changing. And please, if you haven't already, subscribe to Move and Earn USA and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage of immigration news and policy changes. We're committed to being your reliable source for accurate, detailed, practical immigration information you can use. In upcoming videos, we'll follow up with more specific guidance. We'll do a step-by-step walkthrough of the continuous status review process once official forms and procedures are released. We'll cover strategies for documenting civic integration and residency, and we'll also create content for the long-term goal many permanent residents are working toward: United States citizenship through naturalization. In fact, our next major video series will walk you through naturalization from start to finish, the application, documentation, biometrics, the interview, the civics test, and the oath ceremony where you become a United States citizen. If you're a green card holder thinking about that next step, you won't want to miss it. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. What's your reaction to this new law? How do you think a civic integration requirement would affect your life, or the lives of people you know? Do you see these changes as reasonable, or as an unnecessary burden on legal residents who are already contributing? What concerns you most about this new system, and what questions do you still have that I can address in future videos? Let's keep the discussion respectful and thoughtful. Your questions help shape our future content and help me understand what information is most valuable to you. Until our next video, stay informed, stay prepared, and remember that knowledge and preparation are your best tools for navigating a changing immigration landscape. This is Move and Earn USA, and I'll see you in the